step down a little bit further away from the road so I don't have to shout so much. This area, as it existed, was a forest long before Henry Hudson got here, and it's always going to try to go back to that. Within this, since we're close to the beach here, there are sort of certain ecological niches that existed then, and particularly coastal plain stuff. But in general, most of Manhattan and the surrounding areas here was very heavily wooded. So the natural ecosystems are always going to want to try to go back to that process. So what we have here, and that process is driven a lot by the sort of the dispersal strategies that these plants employ to get themselves around. So some of them, like some of these really tan-colored grasses, have seed heads that are sort of developed to float along in the wind. Some of them, like this Artemisia here, which is not native. Most of the stuff in here is not native. Produces very small seeds as well, so they rely on wind. Other things like the trees and some of the other shrubby things we'll see here produce berries, so they rely on animals, birds to get themselves around. And then even humans too, like hopefully we'll see when we visit our other site that some seeds have little hooked barbs and things that catch onto your shoe or your fur or whatever whatever you might. Well, if you were an animal, of course, this has happened on a time scale much larger than what we can really understand, and particularly succession in the way that plant communities change happened over hundreds of years, thousands of years. So on a short-term scale, we're talking a lot about human interference and disturbance and the introduction of invasive and exotic plants. And so this particular site here that we're going to walk past,
so this is our site.
Reading something you found out here on the ground? You mentioned peas.
People have noted it's on the very illustrious address of Highland Avenue. Highland View Avenue. So what the first exercise, little task I'd like you to do while we're here is to actually think of this small patch here, which we could actually enter, unlike the others which we've been separated from and had to look into. This one we could actually go into. And what I'd like you to do, using your grid notebook, is to actually draw yourself a small plan and document the things that you notice in this landscape. So it might be that you identify where the trees are, that you identify the kinds of plants that you see growing. You might want to note down some of the things to do with dispersal that Uli's talked about. So for example, is there a cluster of something? Does it seem to be sort of scattered? And the beautiful thing about this grid notebook, we felt it was actually easier to deal with in lots of ways than a blank piece of paper, because there's already stuff on it. And you can use it, and you might, for example, want to say, okay, there is a clear outline to this site, but there's also an inner border. And you can see that even within and without that small railing, there is quite a different kind of community, quite a different kind of space. So the very first thing I'd like you to do is just to kind of document, and you can do this in whatever way you want, because I'm not marking it. You have no idea how happy that makes me. So the other things you might just want to notice are what kind of terrain do you have? So is there a mound? Is there a hollow? Are there clusters of things? Think about textures. Any kind of information you can get, you're welcome to sketch out. Just using the same concepts of succession, dispersal and disturbance, just take a few minutes to imagine how this site might change. So you might imagine either that something which is already dispersing might disperse to a tremendous degree, or something which is a disturbance might come along. You might sort of invent a new disturbance or kind of accelerated disturbance that you already see. Or think, what is the next succession that this site might carry out? And you are the agent of these transformations, so you can sort of propel yourself and propel the site.
At least have a start on your future utopia here. We're going to go up on the boardwalk in a minute, but could everyone just close your eyes for a minute, and I'll keep track. And just listen. Find your way out onto the boardwalk and just stand so that you're kind of on the length. And just look right, look up, and look over. Do that a couple times. And then again, just note down what it is you see as you do this sort of circular horizon up there. Just to sort of practice the idea of making patterns out of randomness, I would like to invite you to take another page of your book and just going from the listening item or items through each one that we did, plot them on here in some pattern. What it could possibly have done was to create a map that could then be either a floor pattern or could be a pattern you could put into arms, or a map that you could use choreographically. That was the goal for that particular item.
Your grand and posting
Maybe we should also mention the cheesecake question.
Oh yes, I think it's going to sound like